Welcome to the Go for Movies, everybody, for the week of February 7th. I'm Ryan Miller, and Trespass himself, Matt Amberg.
Again, sometimes I just question your commitment to sparkle motion on these things. Like, he's trespassing. It's, instead of trespassing. What? I don't know.
I'm going to be honest with you and all of our viewers. I'm still feeling under the weather.
Yeah, you don't look great right now.
Oh, no, I feel fine. I'm on the other end of it for sure. But
I'm just saying you don't look good.
Oh, okay, fair. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, okay.
But was COVID.
Oh,
I got COVID.
You got the vid.
I got the virus, which is what I've been telling people, and they don't take that to mean anything else, as far as I can tell.
You got the virus!
But that's why I sound the way I do on Book Club for Movies, where we watch one movie a week, and then we talk about it, like we've been doing for, wild guess, what has it been? I just wrote it down to 5 years?
172 episodes.
I get confused because obviously we started talking movies on the back half of Zero Hit Points for a while, so I don't necessarily count that as the start, even though obviously when we broke off, whatever. This week, it's Trespass from 1992, not the other one that shows up literally anytime you try to look for the movie Trespass. Anywhere it is. Matt, perhaps you can dispel some of the confusion with a synopsis.
I can. There is going to be a significant lack of Nicolas Cage, and for that, I do apologize. Trespass, coming at you an hour and 41 minutes, written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, directed by Walter Hill, starring Bill Paxton, Ice-T, William Sadler, Ice Cube, Art Evans, Devereaux White, and Tiny Lister Jr. Here is your Book Club for Movies synopsis for Trespass. Two Arkansas firemen come into possession of a so-called treasure map, leading them to a seemingly abandoned building in East St. Louis, and on a collision course with some guys who don't take kindly to strangers on their turf.
Thank you for not underselling it, because very quickly within like the first 10 minutes of this movie, I'm like, how do you even explain this? This is almost on the verge of you can't make this stuff up unless it's extremely made up, because yes, it's two Arkansas firemen that find a treasure map, which, tell me the last time when you not only saw a treasure map in the film, but when the people in the film referred to it as a treasure map, like recently, not from a film that was made back in 92 at the very least.
Okay, national treasure.
See what I mean? It's just, it doesn't happen anymore. But when it does, Nicolas Cage
again. Oh my gosh, we did it! I brought it back. I wasn't even trying.
So yes, thank you for not underselling the movie we got here. Did you know though that it was written by the Bobs, the Back to the Future Bobs, before they wrote Back to the Future?
Indeed. And when you watch the movie and think about and you go back and look at Walter Hill's filmography, where again we talked about this kind of last week, where I mentioned
just a little bit
The Warriors, Southern Comfort, just to name a couple. His movies are he's got a feel to his films. Like they're kind of they can be a little mean, they can be a little violent, but they're very much he likes to play with how violence interacts with normal situations, more so I think than others. And so I knew that this movie was written, I want to say it was late 70s for the Bobs when they wrote it. Like it was an older movie for them, one of their first things. And then I know there was some pushback on the movie when it was released, because it came out right at the same time as the LA riots were happening. And I don't remember what happened with that, but I remember that being a controversy because it linked directly up with Ice-T doing the song Cop Killer.
Yeah.
And it was like those happened like right near each other, I feel like. And I feel like the music, the Cop Killer song, was it came before the movie, and then that didn't help that there was also the riots. But I don't know that I remember things happening, but I don't know the timings.
Yeah, Matt, I've got you covered.
Ryan, I love it when you cover me.
Because obviously after even watching this, I was intrigued when you told me it was the Bobs. And I want to say, actually, now that I think about it, during the movies that made us for Back to the Future, they might mention this film, because I want to say it was done before, and they had problems getting it made. And after having established themselves with Back to the Future or whatever else, they did obviously a few things. They were on fire back then.
Yeah,
I think that allowed them to put this into motion. But yes, it was originally called Looters. That was the title of the film.
Okay, did not know
wherein
that.
Some of the controversy might have arisen, yes. And between it, or during it being made, in fact, I want to say it had been made and it was during the release cycle, it hadn't come out yet, but they were pumping it up. The LA riots happened. So yes, the title was changed, not only because of the maybe loaded term, because I feel like that term hasn't become loaded until fairly recently, even though it always was.
Well, I think then, because of the LA riots and all that, it was such a racially motivated and racially that whole thing was, and so to refer to it as Looters was almost explicitly saying, hey, this movie is about black people doing bad stuff, when when in reality it's the white guys that are looting here.
Everybody's looting.
Well, to be fair, the gangsters are there to kill somebody, not to get that treasure. They don't even know the treasure's there until like 3/4 of the way through the movie.
True.
So they're not looters. They're not the bad guys here. I just want to point that out.
On
the bad guys.
Scale of 1 to looter, taking into account how much time one is a looter, yes, it's a complicated film, to say the least. But also, Walter Hill hasn't shied away from mentioning some of those politics, and they are in here. He has said that they're not really explicitly in there. Like, he has said this isn't, I didn't set out to make a political movie, is what he said. And in that, I absolutely believe him. He set out to make an action movie and succeeded, I will say, absolutely, also. But yeah, during the cycle, they would tell people, they're like, oh, we're making this movie, it's called Looters. And then from then on, they would just say, oh, you're making a movie about the riots? And they're like, no. So even if it wasn't charged, there was like nothing they could do to fix that title, really. And honestly, I think I might enjoy the Trespass as a better title, too.
I think it's a way better title.
Yeah. Well, it also hints at, I think, some of what was going on, because there's a lot of talk of territory in this film. And the other interesting thing is that Walter Hill was very open about this being an off-the-cuff shoot. And yes, there was a script. The ending was changed, which we will also get to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, quote, quite a bit different, in fact, he says.
I'd like to know what that entails.
Well, yeah, we'll get there.
You're like, it's not different at all.
Well, I have issues with the ending, probably regardless. Or
half of them live, half of them die, instead of the other way around.
But yeah, and as part of that off-the-cuff shoot, he has said that he gave the actors actually a wide berth when it came to the dialogue and a lot of the actions, how would you say that, interactions with each other, because obviously, and I can almost see the tension too. Obviously, this was written by a couple white dudes, and sometimes it feels like a gangster movie written by a couple white dudes, but like I said, Walter Hill, in being so off the cuff, was like, if they came up to me and were like, hey, my guy wouldn't say this or wouldn't say it like this, he would defer to them. He'd be like, all right, change it. What you got? And I think that probably extended out, because there are also a lot of moments where I feel like there's some improvisation going on, or they very much so, talking about the ending, found the movie in the edit after the fact. So
could be, yeah.
We'll get to some of that, but I think overall, I love that that's how they went with, because I think that's probably the biggest strength of this movie. Not even considering Walter Hill and what he's done before. And you're right, like he has a type. This is a great one of those types of his. Like he's done it.
And I think this is a great one too, because it's got this is Ice-T's first like big role where he's the lead. like where he's trying to carry the movie. Like it was, I think prior to this, it was, and I don't even know. I'd have to look it up. New Jack was the next big Ice-T movie I can think of, New Jack City. But
I will look it up while you talk about it. But yes, he is the heavy in this movie.
Yeah. What's his name's King James?
King James, yeah.
Which, you got to love that. He's got the hair, dude. His hair is killing me in this movie.
It's pretty great. Yeah.
It is that, like, it is totally that flat, straightened out 70s. Like he's going for a look, and I don't know if that's. I'd be curious to know if that was a Walter Hill thing, because again, going back to Walter Hill, this is a movie that I easily could have seen being made in the 70s. Like you could see this. This is a movie easily done in any decade, I think. Basically keeping this story even as it is now, and I think it's going to work in with give me any version of it. Like you could totally make this into some 40s noir. I can see it. It's there.
Sure. Yeah, we could do a whole Spider-Verse of Trespass. Are you kidding? This could be great.
That would be so cool.
At the which Nicolas Cage would probably show up.
That's yes.
Let's face
that's
he does
true.
Because
in one of them, he would end up being like one of the Ice-T guys. He'd be a King James from another. Sure. There'd be this swath of like amazing actors from over the centuries that are black actors, and then you get Nick Cage. And then just more black actors, and it's
and then the John Mulaney Ice-T,
and
that's the Spider-Ham one. Yeah, no, this is great. A New Jack City actually was the year before, 1991.
Okay, so that was probably but he wasn't even. I mean, he was kind of the major part of that movie too. So
haven't seen it, so you tell me.
Tough movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. That movie, right. And I do remember that and Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society.
Right.
All three of those. Juice came out shortly after that. There were just
CB4 was 93.
CB4 is amazing. But those were all like huge movies for me, man. Like I watched that stuff all like over and over and over again. And similar to like Trespass was one of these movies that just fell into that because it's got great character actors making a great character movie. Like this is not a movie where you need and take nothing away. Bill Paxton should always be a AAA #1 action everything star.
I have words on Bill Paxton, but continue.
I love Bill Paxton. He's #1.
Absolutely.
But I have never in my life thought of Bill Paxton really as that A-list #1 guy. He can be sure, but he was always a better side character actor, supporting player.
Has he ever been that in a movie? I mean, I go to Titanic for some stupid reason, but he's not obviously.
He's barely in that too.
No, he's not even the lead because he just exists in the side, the not flashback part.
The closest, like he was the lead on Big Love, the TV show Big Love, which was many seasons long. Right. But like Twister, I guess.
Right. Okay. Also an ensemble movie though, for sure.
But that's the thing. It's like actually, because his best movies, for me are A Simple Plan, which is him, Billy Bob Thornton, and Bridget Fonda. So still kind of a bit of an ensemble. Like,
okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But my point is that you with Bill Paxton and William Sadler, you immediately have two character actors that if you're familiar with them at all, what they're bringing to the table. They're going to be rock solid in this. Ice-T and Ice Cube, I mean, sure. Like, again, we've only just gotten Boys in the Hood. We've only just gotten New Jack City. So these guys are still are coming up in the acting world. But dude, they've been doing this stuff. Like they have been acting and putting this stuff on video, making music videos for, over a decade at that point. So you have this entire story that is a simple, like at its heart, it is a simple, the two firemen are putting out a fire at the beginning of the film. A guy is in the burning building and he hands Bill Paxton the map and says, I was a bad person. I did too much. I got to die. And then just jumps into the fire. He's like, I got to go. And then kills himself. Which, by the way, who starts a movie like that?
Well, the movie, that's not even the first scene in the movie. What are you talking about? The first scene in the movie is the friggin' point blank murder in the car by
yes. So
I guess the guy that doesn't hang around that long, actually, but
but again, it's like two things right away that are just
right.
Here you go. We're juxtaposing the two very different situations these people are in.
Yeah, that first one you're like, oh man, that's nuts, and then you don't even see anything about it. You're off to Arkansas firemen for like 20 minutes, and you're like, what was the? It never stops, honestly. Like It is an action movie. I've been going through a lot of action movies, so this almost seems like a misnomer because this isn't the type of action movie that I've been watching a lot of recently. But it is an action movie in that it never stops moving. But also, like, my head space never stopped moving. I was like, okay, what was that about? Wait, what's going on here then? And then now we're treasure hunting, which also tell me that didn't like fire off some Bill Paxton.
Oh, are you kidding me? Come on.
I'm like, the treasure's not wet, so I don't know if this is.
I don't know. Is it truly a treasure? Because we didn't. Is it on land? Is that
Paul
treasure?
F. Tompkins does a character obviously based on Bill Paxton where he hunts treasures, so you can go look that up. But anyway, yeah, the movie is nonstop pretty much from that beginning, pretty much from either headshot or man jumping into fire. Yeah, take your pick, I guess.
Yeah, man jumping into fire.
Fair enough.
And again, I kind of love that. Especially because it's Walter Hill, it just makes me think, man, I really wish we could have gotten a little more grain on this. It looks great. I love how this movie looks because it does look, it looks fairly gritty. You know, it's not pretty. It's not like.
You wanted more grit?
I did. I wanted the set, but I wanted it's the film grain. You know, I wanted that like the 70s, like the actual, the stock to look bad.
You wanted it to look like the Warriors as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I love
Can't blame you.
that this has the palette like that fits all of that stuff. And again, I mentioned it earlier on with Ice-T. The hair, dude, it's like it's straight out of like 1977. Like that's how I feel like whenever you'd see something like you'd see old Dolomite and stuff, like that's the hair that you would see, dude. Like that's one of the styles, and it was amazing to see that because I think for me it's one of the callbacks that fits this into why I love Walter Hill. You know, like it's just he's a guy that I don't know could have ever like evolved any further. You know, like he's not a director looking to evolve. He's a director looking to tell stories that he likes to tell in a certain way.
Oh yeah, man. He's absolutely about his thing. Like even just going through the Wikipedia, like everything that attracted him to this film was like, oh, I already like this. Oh, this is right up my alley. Like, oh, this is in fact, why don't I just find it? It says, I was quite surprised because it's certainly not the kind of stories Zemeckis and Gale identified with, but I thought it was enormously primal, elemental, brutal, and a great confrontation. It was totally dependent upon the narrative circumstances to reveal character, and of course it took place in a time compression. That's actually the word I was looking for. And then he says, both are things I'm very fond of.
Which, I mean,
emphasis added, but, I can see it.
Totally. And for all of those reasons, I mean, along with just the story itself, I honestly can tell you, I love this movie and these types of crime, interaction movies where it's not just a turf war, but there's the other thing. And then when they're like, I love how all of this falls out, that they're going somewhere that they're going from Arkansas to East St. Louis thinking, okay, we've got this map. We know where the building is. We know that there was a whole bunch of stuff stolen from a church and it was stashed here.
Just a whole bunch of gold, like artifacts from across time.
Right. And they're like, okay, we can go from Arkansas to East St. Louis, get the gold, and be back in a day. So I kind of love that that's the plan. This is not we're going to be there for 5. No, this is easy. And I love that for them to get there, they go there. No problem. We find everything. Cool. Just so happens that is also the place where King James is coming to kill somebody.
The guy who did the headshot at the beginning of the film. Yes, this is where that comes back.
And they witness it. And then that's like, it is such a simple, set of you could call them coincidences, whatever you want to, however you want to refer to it. The story doesn't exist without those steps, but it's just a perfect setup for this type of movie and for what we get here. And I think that with that setup, including the beginning that you're talking about, the headshot and then the guy in the fire, I think this movie sets itself up in such a way that, like, because it's just nonstop, you know what you're going to get out of it. Like, like, to a point, you know what I mean? Like, this is I'm trying to say that it's a movie that tells you what this movie is immediately. There's no screwing around. You're not going to question this. You're not going to be wondering, are we going to figure out what the gold is? Are we going to get it? You're not going to question those things. That's not what you're here for.
But that's interesting because the movie does have a ramp, right? Like it starts out pretty innocent, especially these are my words on Bill Paxton too, by the way. This is where this was going.
Yes. Take me to your Paxton.
I love seeing him in movies because he's one of the few that I think can play both ends of the spectrum. Like, I've seen him be the game over man, and I've seen him be the in fact, strangely enough, he had a part in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Have you fallen off that yet?
Oh, definitely I fell off.
Okay, yeah. But he's the heavy in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while and totally sells it. Like, I've seen him be both ends of the spectrum, and in some movies, I've seen him be both. Right.
Sure.
So and this movie is one of those. It's funny because I was writing that down at the beginning. He's like, man, I love Paxton. Like, he can do this and he can do this. And then sometimes he does both. And then slowly this movie, I was like, oh, this is one of those movies because he starts out innocent. He's very much the guy that's like, I don't know, William Sadler, like, you're talking about too many crazy things. Like, he doesn't even want to take off work. He's at the very beginning, he's like, well, I guess we got to report this and let people know where the gold is. And Sadler's like, no, are you crazy? So Paxton is slowly going along with this. In my eyes, he has the arc of the movie, honestly. But that makes it all the more interesting because, yes, it has such an identity and you do know what type of movie it is because at the beginning, there's kind of like nothing happened. It's just that. And it's just them looking for the gold. And then they start to hear something. And Paxton's like, I'll go check it out. So Paxton walks out. And it's one of the all-time best first act breaks where the Ice-T punches the dude and he falls through the glass ceiling and he falls through the building, breaks his back on a banister right in front of Paxton. So Paxton looks up and then meets eyes with Ice-T right in that moment, like that. And then the first act is over, right? Everything has changed. So yeah, it's there from the beginning and it just keeps going. There's a homeless dude that they run into. I don't know where. In fact, they might have already run into him at this point. Is that right?
Yeah, because they at this point they start searching. He shows up and he's like, "Why are you guys in my house?" And they're like, "This isn't nobody's house." And it's like, "I'm living here, obviously," And then so they tie him up. Which again, Paxton is like, dude, we should not be doing this. And he's like trying to talk to him and like.
So he's in the mix, and Ice-T's in the mix, and then he starts calling for backup. And then from then on out, it basically becomes they're holed up in this room where the treasure is, even though they haven't found it yet, with this homeless guy who...
Not only that, though, they, at this point, don't forget, they've also... So Ice-T and the gangsters don't know anything about them. They don't know why they're there. They just know we saw them.
Oh, that's right.
And then William Sadler decides to kidnap one of them, not realizing it's the brother of Ice-T.
Right.
And that's what ends up causing the backup to be called and for this to really explode into the far more than anybody was expecting.
And the brother's a dope addict, so he's going through withdrawals, and that'll come back later. Sadler ropes him to the front door, so he's like, "Hey, if you're going to shoot us through the door, you're going to shoot your brother," which I thought was pretty.
Which kind of like that is
even though, and I could go on about this aspect. They really riddle the room with bullets from every other angle. Like, it doesn't seem like they're really put off of the idea that much.
You kind of expected the Looney Tunes thing where they shoot completely around his brother and then the wall around him falls and he's still like, guys?
In fact, I'll just keep going. Like, the movie's kind of dumb. There are, like, the gangsters pull up for this murder essentially. Like I don't know if it was premeditated, but you sure get the feeling like they knew, you know, if they had to, they were going to, because this guy murdered their friend and they had it on tape and they knew and all this stuff. But they drive by the Arkansas truck from the firemen, from Paxton and Sadler, and they're just like, whose car is that? They're like, you know, let's keep going to the murder thing on this same property. Like, unknown car. Like, I feel like that cancels the meeting. Yeah. But then actually Sadler goes out to observe them first before Paxton, and just observes them. Like, sees them, sees the guns, sees the murder about to happen, and even then makes more sense for Sadler's character, but even then he isn't like, we got to get out of here. He just stays there. In fact, movie doesn't even care to show us that he keeps observing. We just know that he does, right? But that's fine because we're more concerned about Paxton because he left even though he wasn't supposed to, which is the other, you know, kind of dumb thing. And then when Paxton sees Ice-T, he doesn't run at all. Like, he stays there staring at him for a while until they start shooting bullets, and then he's like, I should run now.
Yeah. Like what was he expecting for Ice-T to go, sorry? Like,
but this is the thing. I have a list of all of those things, and it doesn't necessarily stop because also there's a video camera that we get some perspective from, actually. Yes. But there's a dude called Video on the squad in the gangsters group that is just always videotaping all of their murders and stuff.
Yes.
That's the thing.
That's a real thing, though.
That
was a real thing.
Yeah, Hill read about it in the Washington Post, and he thought it would be interesting. And again, going with his idea of off the cuff with immediacy, he was like, "Oh, it's perfect for that." And not only is it perfect for that, but it fits very well with his directorial technique throughout, where the movie basically comes gradually more handheld as stuff starts exploding.
Yes.
But this is the other thing. I don't even like all of those little dumb things. I totally can dismiss. Like, they're not so far gone that I don't chalk them up to high stress situations or people just being dumb. And again, Paxton, who does a few of the dumb things, is kind of the innocent here. So also that works within his character. Like, none of it. Sure. It all works. It's all totally fine. It was just funny at times.
No, there are definitely moments where you question, like, why would that even happen? You know, how are what is going? But then again, yeah, you have to give a little bit of leeway for some of this stuff because we're not telling a true story here. You know, we're not trying to follow the 1, 2, 3s of the actual trespass. The story of King James.
Hey, he does have a historical name though.
He is a king.
Oh.
Ice Cube. Also, he's in this. His name is Savon, and every time they say his name, I just think of the store.
Yeah, Cube. Yeah.
I was like,
could have pronounced it differently, maybe. I don't know.
I was like, dude, if you guys have somebody named Ralph's, and then there's like
Alpha Beta.
Yeah,
Alpha
like
Beta? No.
Yeah, 7-Up. Or I mean, not 7-Eleven. Stop and Go.
You know, there was a part of me that wondered if at one point, because also they pull up. Oh, it's when they see the car on the way to the murder. In fact, it might be the guy who's getting murdered. But he sees the other car and he's like, what's up with that car? And the other guy's like, I don't know what's up with the car, man. Why are you asking me? And he's like, okay, I just don't want this to be no okie dokie. And I'm like, is this Surf Party USA? Sometimes, you know, like the 30 Rock bit where Tracy Morgan's like, you know, like you guys were saying off the chain too much. So we say Surf Party USA now, even though that wasn't true. Or, yeah, I wonder. But I'm also white, and it was the 90s, so
that's also true.
All of these things are true.
Yeah, we maintain our whiteness. Unfortunately, it's
even after this movie,
we couldn't, if anything,
if not more so.
Yeah, but we've mentioned this, I think, a few times now, and kind of I think maybe we've given most of this out, but the movie does ramp, and as you said, as the movie gets towards the end, it does become more handheld until this movie has an ending.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
So sure. So the ending of this movie, I do love this ending because I think I love it because of just how like ambiguous it ends up, like it in your head. So
well, on the screen too, I'd say.
Essentially, actually, at the end, there's quite a bit of a shootout. There's actually some interactivity between the gangsters that they're trying to pull one over on each other. So there's some interesting back and forth there.
Yeah, sorry. Ice Cube is the wild card in the gangster group, by the way, actually. Like, he's at odds with Ice-T quite a bit and is never really under the thumb, never. He's got his own ideas. You never know what he's going to do.
Well, and then one of the gangsters, like, he basically tricks Ice-T into being like, or Ice Cube into going, hey, maybe we should try to just kill these guys instead, which throws everything into a whole thing.
Because he calls the arms dealer who comes and gives them a bunch of guns. One of them is a sniper rifle. One of the gangsters goes up to a vantage point, and by the end of the film, accidentally ends up shooting Ice-T's brother. But then this is almost strange because he tells...
By the way, he calls Savon, and he's like, yo, I just shot Lucky on accident. And then Savon goes, guess he wasn't that lucky after all.
Plenty of those in this movie too. I actually think he tells somebody else, but that guy also tells Savon, but then they both either have that idea or one of them does. I don't know. But then they tell Ice-T that one of the white dudes did it. So Ice-T flies off. Yeah, that's where that...
And I love though, when the dude calls to say, yo, I accidentally shot Savon, he's like leaving. He basically shoots him and puts the gun down and goes, I didn't do nothing. And then walks away and is like, hey, I shot Savon. I gotta go. Bye. And then hangs up and he's gone. He just leaves.
Or Lucky. He shot Lucky, yeah.
He shot Lucky, yeah. Which, hilarious. So this ends up leading to the giant violent kind of shootout where everybody ends up kind of getting their own, or getting what's deserved of them to some degree or the other, with the exceptions being Bill Paxton, who somehow survives, and Bradley, who's the
Raymond, I think. Was it?
I think Bradley is the character, is the
homeless dude?
Bradley is the homeless guy.
You are correct.
Yes. My
mistake.
Aha!
I was talking about the arms dealer for some reason.
Yes, you were. But Bradley follows him. They've at this point realized, Bill Paxton's realized he can't get back to the truck. The truck has been destroyed. Like they've pulled out spark plugs or something. And so he looks at Bradley and he's like, come on, man, we could get out of here. Let's go. And Bradley says, go. I'm going to be fine. And
he says, I won't be able to keep up.
I won't be,
just go without me, which doesn't necessarily make sense, because also this is from a distance. They're like looking at each other, and Paxton saying, come with me, I buy, because he's kind of been the innocent, even though slowly he's losing some of that over the course of the movie. But he's like, no, come with me. And he's like, no, I'll just hold you back or something. And I'm like, that's a weird excuse. Also, this is, in any event, Paxton buys it and takes off. It's because Bradley has the gold with him, which they did find.
Which he just cracks up, walks away laughing. And that's the end of the movie.
That is the end of the movie, which is abrupt. And the reason I think he says that I would hold you back is because there was also a part of the movie where he got shot that was deleted. So shot in the leg. But there was several parts that got deleted. So this is why I say I think this was found in the edit, is because just watching the film, I noticed when William Sadler and Ice-T come to a standoff, did you notice the cut right before Ice-T starts firing?
I guess not.
It's pretty good. I can see why they would have kept it, because it's not the worst I've seen. But still, it's not like they even cut back to Sadler for a second. It's just you're looking at Ice-T, and then it cuts to another slightly different shot, same reel of Ice-T, who then begins shooting, and Sadler goes down, and then we get to see Sadler dead on the ground. We don't get to see Ice-T dead on the ground. We just get to hear he's dead. We also don't get to see Ice Cube dead on the ground. We get like a straight up montage of a death where we see Ice Cube, he looks up, we see beams falling, which don't even look like they're in the same area, and we're supposed to assume that they fell on him, and that was the end of Ice Cube.
And that was the end of Ice Cube.
Reading Wikipedia, it's not super clear either. Like he does say the ending was quite a bit different from the original. They said they tested the original ending with black audiences and they didn't like it. So they changed it to the version where everybody dies, strangely enough. But then even Wikipedia says, I know this is stupid, but again, in trying to kind of figure out the ending here, for me at least. It says, quote, "The message of the movie just got lost in the gunfire," said Bob Gale. "This is why the death scene of Ice Cube's character Savon is not shown. An alternate ending was also filmed during production, in which Raymond is not killed by Savon." Oh, so it's the arms dealer, not the homeless guy, Bradley. That's where I was getting confused. Sorry. Either way, where Raymond is not killed by Savon, but instead he gets shot in the leg by Vince, who, along with Bradley, who is the homeless guy, escapes in Raymond's Jaguar, and they turn the gold to the police.
Yeah, that's a terrible ending.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely worse. But I guess I'm sure they did the best with what they had, but it is kind of abrupt and a little clumsy with the editing. And you know, if this had, like, if this made it all the way to a great ending, to, you know, something that holds up to the rest of the film, because the rest of the film is beautifully shot, beautifully put together, paced, like, it's great. It is absolutely great. And then you get to the ending that kind of looks like a hodgepodge. They did best with what they could. Like, it's kind of a bummer, but whatever. It's not like I wouldn't say still go watch the thing if you want to see some great action and actors and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I like the ending. I think it's fun, but it definitely not the best ending that could have been, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I would say that too. I think they chose the right ending. It's just obviously
there are other endings in that story that exist in that story as is that they didn't get. They just didn't figure out. So,
or edit. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what footage they did have, but it seems like they could have had something more or better than this. I don't know. Maybe Walter Hill was already out the door at this point or something. Anywho, it's good. Anything else you want to say about Trespass?
Watch it.
Oh, I want to say something about Trespass.
Do you got stupid trivia?
Not technically.
Okay.
But what was the deal with the cell phone the whole time? Because Ice-T keeps getting a call from Marvin, who he's like, "Nah, man, I can't talk right now." This happens maybe 3 times. Motorola, all big in the frame right there while he's talking on these cell phones. And then, as best I can tell, the payoff is when Bradley picks up the phone after he's been shot and says, "Nah, man, King James can't come to the phone. He's dead." And then, like, at best I can tell, that's what all that was about. But the fact that the Motorola logo shows up so big and that it happens so often, I'm like, either they thought this was novel and they're like, "Man, we got cell phones. We could put this in a movie and it'll be like something people have never seen." But I mean, the bad guys in Die Hard had walkie-talkies and we didn't have to hear a ringtone every single time. So I'm not sure what exactly was going on with the cell phone. Any ideas?
Yeah, the movie was originally called Trespass, brought to you by Motorola. I got no idea.
All right.
That's a weird thing.
Okay.
Didn't notice it, but it's funny.
It is. The payoff isn't the worst. It just seemed like a lot for, especially even this movie, to have a running gag throughout. I would give it 83 stars.
Out of 85.
So if you haven't seen Trespass, it might be worth watching. And if you haven't seen Book Club for Movies, it might be worth visiting at bookclubformovies.com or Facebook and Twitter. We're also on Patreon. This is new-ish, 3 months-ish. I did a Patreon post where I think I mentioned that. Okay. No, it was in the newsletter. That's right.
Stop bringing up time.
You're right.
We're doing nothing but losing it.
So go check that out at Patreon/bookclubformovies. And let us know what you think. Throw some money in the tip jar. Matt, do we know what we're doing next week?
Have we at any point during the making of this show ever known ahead of time? I think not.
I don't think so. Because of that, during the week I have started writing down, because this is the other thing we do is we'll be like, "Oh yeah, we should do that," and then never talk about it again. So now when we do that, I do write those things down, but unfortunately I only have 2 movies on that list so far, Nebraska and Sorcerer. So that doesn't mean, if you got a better idea.
I don't necessarily have a better idea. I mean,
I think both of those movies might actually be your ideas. So, hey,
which is more proof that I can't really outdo myself. I'm that great right from the start.
Let's do Sorcerer. I feel like I'm in the mood now after this. Not that there's obviously some history to Sorcerer. I've even heard it just not having known the movie existed before you told me.
Yeah, Sorcerer is, it's actually, I think it is streaming on Amazon right now. oddly enough. 1977. This is a good one too, because funny enough, this is going to be this will be a cool discussion when we get to talking about the making of this movie and the era and William Friedkin and how similar the films like what he and Walter Hill had in common. It'll be super fun.
I think that's why I'm feeling it. Yeah, it does very much seem like a dotted line there. Cool.
And I'm not gonna lie, this is one of those movies that you just are reminded that Roy Scheider was freaking cool as hell, man.
This might be the one. I mean, not that I don't enjoy him in Jaws, but
I don't know, man. He's pretty great in The Conversation too.
Yeah, any conversation he's ever had.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
I mean,
so
love it.
That's another dotted line right there. I feel like maybe I'll throw that in.
Ooh.
I want to just sit down and watch movies. I feel like I don't have the time or do it that much anymore. So maybe I can get 2 going for this next. So come back next week for Sorcerer. We'll do it. Matt, we've done a relatively quick job at talking about Trespass. You got any movies to throw on the back half of the show here?
I really don't. Everything I had, I've put into that the most recent newsletter that came out
really?
Just a little over a week ago. Pretty much, yeah. I don't think I have anything. Oh, you know what? That's funny.
I knew it.
So yeah, I did watch. What's the best way of putting this? So
I can't wait.
Beth and I were having just a little bit of a, like a not like relationship. We weren't having a down or anything. It was just kind of like we were having there's a couple days where just everybody was feeling a little meh.
Methinks you doth protest too much.
I do. But I really a whole bunch of people on Twitter that I follow have been coming out of their reviews for Jackass, and so I went back and did a whole rewatch.
Oh, wow, you did have nothing at all, but really something. So you watched, how many are there now? There's 4?
Yeah, there's so there's the first, second, third, and then there's 3.5, and then there's the fourth one. So there's 5.
3.5 is a different film?
It is not. It is but it is. So when they did Jackass 3, it was 3D and all that. They just shot so much footage.
Right.
They legit shot so much footage that they went, okay, we're just going to release a second movie with a bunch of the other footage that just we thought was really funny. Didn't make the movie.
I mean, why wouldn't you, honestly?
Then they threw in some interviews in between, as opposed to the way they do the regular thing where it was just,
So did you watch 1, 2, and 3.5, or 1, 2, 3, and 3.5?
Correct. The second one.
Okay,
1, 2, 3, 3.5.
Right. And then 4? Is 4 out?
It's not out yet.
Okay.
But everybody's been talking about how wonderful it is and all that. And
I have seen some positive reviews.
And I gotta say, number one, these movies almost universally do hold up for me. Like most of it is still really funny. There are a couple things though, like, and it's not just where he personally is at now, but as I've gotten older, like Bam was the least funny guy out of all of them. Like he was just almost mean-spirited. And I really noticed it where I was like, at no point did I ever think like, at no point did I think that it's like watching these beforehand, was it anything other than them just goofing around? But even in the first movie, right at the start, which is them in the giant shopping cart, right? Like they're all in the shopping cart. He punches Knoxville in the face for no reason. Like, and they hold the thing on Knoxville. And when I'm watching it the first time or second time or third time, I'm just cracking up. Like it's funny as hell. Watching it now, like that wasn't funny. It's not funny. Like he just punches him in the face. And then, and here's what really gets me. Here's the thing that gets me though.
Okay.
Because he is also the biggest baby about all of it. He can't take any of it. He can only dish it out. And in that exact same moment, he punches Knoxville. Done. R.I.P. drunken moron. slaps him, just gives him a wallop in the back of the head. The face Bam gives him, like, he turns around and is like mad. Like, he doesn't look like, it's not the angry that you get off of Wee Man or Steve-O or any of the other guys when they're like, okay, it's gone a little far or whatever, but I'm going to be fine. This is like, he just looks like, how dare you? Why would you do that to me? And through the Jackass 1 and 2, he does that all the freaking time. And it is because everybody else in the movie, like all of them, everybody but him, even in their worst moments, seems to be dealing with it and having an okay, like whatever. But dude, he is just a sourpuss. And then on top of all of that, dude, he is just a jackass. He like jackass in the wrong way. Yeah.
So you usually like it when the title of the film is in the movie.
Yeah, not when it's the human and he's actually that. but the only other thing I can actually say about those movies is beyond that stuff, almost all of it's still super, super funny. I will say, man, that third one, they get real poop heavy with that one. And I mean, like one poo gag is enough, I think. But they have like 4
Disagree.
Or 5. They have 4 or 5, and and then my other question has been, why is it always Dave England? Like, what is the deal with making him poop?
Oh, I think we know why. I don't know who that is, but that sounded like the right thing to say. Wow, and you call yourself a fan? Come on.
I don't. like almost everything else.
Okay.
But man, you know, it is hilarious though, going back and watching those and realizing absolutely how much charisma and everything Knoxville has just oozing out of him as a person.
I mean, he's always been the one that's been one step ahead. It's funny because growing up skateboarding, like I knew Bam there first.
Sure.
And he was never the best skateboarder, but he always dropped in on crazy stuff. So whatever. And then he would always have some part in his, sessions that was weird or comedic or something like that. In fact, I want to say some videos they would literally just put on, I forget the name, was it CKY or something like that? Yeah. I want to say they would just put some of those on at the end of some of the skate videos sometimes or something like that. So I was never into him that much because I was there for the skateboarding more than anything. But then also, I did always kind of get that feeling from him because also like when he got rich, like he just grew into more of a douchebag. Like it didn't seem like he had any of the self-awareness that you wanted the people doing that to have, like Knoxville has, actually.
Right. And I would argue Steve-O. Like, I mean, look at, you want to talk about the guy who's had maybe the best turnaround out of all of those guys, Steve-O, dude. The dude went from being trashed all the time to like being completely sober for years now, and he's like living his best life. Good for him,
Which is why it's hard to talk about this honestly, because I know Bam's going through some of that too. But he's also been on the other end where he's been helping. Like I want to say they were, I forget now. Was it Ryan Dunn they were trying to get sober for a long time?
I don't know, man.
Okay. Bam has been on the good end of that sometimes, but I hear he's not doing great now. Is he in the fourth one?
No. So he was, they were gonna bring him back, and he was set to come back, and the deal was, interestingly enough, very Kevin Smith. Sober. This was a Kevin Smith situation with Jay. Right. It was we'll make the movie, but you got to be sober. You can't drink at all or do any drugs or anything. And he couldn't maintain it. And I guess he started picking some fights with Tremaine and Knoxville, and Tremaine just like said, no, I'm done. You're out.
Yeah, that sucks. That's like, I don't even like all good luck and good feelings to Bam Margera. That stuff is devastating. Well,
the last thing I guess I'll say about this, and only because I think it's been said, but Steve-O went through a whole mess of alcohol, drug related stuff, and then people came to him and said, you need help, and he said, yeah, you know what I do, and he took the help, and he got help, and he changed, and good for him. And the same people have been trying to do that with Bam, and he doesn't want the help, and that's his problem. And
you can't do
until
it.
he decides he wants to help and he wants to change. Like, the unfortunate reality is we're likely never going to see the Bam that anybody once really thought was, a good guy. I just don't know that we'll see. He's got to get help. Known too many people.
It's funny hearing you talk about that coming out while they were punching each other, because I feel like that's like where it all started. I feel like there were entire episodes of CKY where just let's hit each other back and forth for 30 minutes or whatever it was.
Which is, again, it's like, it's one thing, but it's like when he's the only one that can't take the punch.
Right. Yeah. No,
that's
you can tell.
Where I just like, and so there's still a few moments with him where absolutely like there, it's funny, but a vast majority of the things that he's involved in, especially when it's his stuff, it's not that funny.
The psychology laid bare during a Jackass cinema experience is something that we could talk about for several more hours.
But we won't.
Maybe, I don't know.
What do you got?
I do have a long. I'm building up a list for our movie volleyball, which we'll talk about here shortly. So I'm trying to think of two that I should pluck from that list. So I'm going to pluck the two most recent, maybe, because I know you've seen both. We just finished watching Judy, the Renee Zellweger, Judy Garland biopic.
Oh, so it's not about Doug Judy.
Unfortunately, no. But no, okay. It's worth watching. I think that movie gets by on the strength of its acting, yes, sure, but also on the strength of the story they're telling, because in a lot of ways, obviously, Judy Garland's story is the story of Hollywood during that time period, right? So it's romantic and devastating in all the ways that those stories are, and I think it's told pretty darn well here. Maybe too well is what I would say is the big downer. Or it's not a big downer, but I guess if you're sensitive to this type of thing, it might turn you off somewhat. But it does feel almost, and this is a stupid term to use for a movie that so many people worked on and that for the most part looks absolutely gorgeous and great and all that stuff. But it feels a little try hard sometimes. Like, it feels like they want the Oscars so bad. And that goes pretty much across the board for the directing, the cinematography, the acting. Like, Zellweger disappears into the role, and I haven't looked up how much she gets it right. I haven't seen a lot of footage of Garland outside of Wizard of Oz even, which obviously is a movie. But
I've heard that.
Yeah, it just all, if anything was a little off-putting, it was that. It just seems to be a little try hard about it all sometimes,
sure. No, I look, that's that movie, that's what they call a prestige picture.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Same thing with similar, your basic review of that was ostensibly Beth's review of Spencer, the one with Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana.
Oh yeah, I remember.
She said basically the same
thing.
The acting like was great, but it felt like all they were trying for was like the director in particular. She's like, this feels like Kristen Stewart just doing this role. Like, she's good, but the movie felt like just we're aiming for an Oscar here, like,
which I feel like you can get through a whole movie without, and it's the business, they probably know, contender or not, especially when it gets made, if it gets made later in the year, etc., all that stuff. But I feel like also an actor can look at that role and be like, oh man, like, this is like, who wouldn't accept that role, even if there's a chance it'll come out like that? Because man, I would imagine it's just a blast to sink your teeth, as they say, into something like that.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch for that reason. I haven't seen the one you're talking. I haven't seen Spencer, but Judy for sure. It's not, like I said, it doesn't keep it from being compelling and from that story being interesting and of an era and all of that. Like, it's worth watching for that. But yeah, that's did you get that at all from Judy? You have seen Judy, right? Am I making that up?
I have not.
What? I could have sworn you recommended it to me, and that's why I had it on my list.
Did I watch it?
Oh, man.
We might have.
I might be wrong. My list is very long and old.
No, I might have watched it. I honestly, I don't think so. Maybe?
And you know what? Actually, I'm going to skip the second movie because there's a leaf blower in the vicinity, and also it's more of a bomb. And not a bad movie. It's more of I really enjoyed this movie more than I thought I was going to, and it's surprising to everybody involved. Wow, yeah. And we'll save that for our Cal Volleyball Live episode coming up. You like that? It's a teaser.
Nice.
But, Matt, you have recently told me that we're going to do Hawkeye as a live show, too. Is this correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. Yes. Are we going to do Hawkeye before Cal Volleyball live show?
I don't know. That's an excellent question.
All right. Because I feel like it's coming up in a week or two here. So
those might be the two shows that are going to be live minimum, I guess, for this month, for February.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And those will go out to everybody, and they will show up as podcasts after the fact. I think I have a new recording technique for that. So if you didn't like the audio so much, podcast-wise on that last live show, it should be better this next time around. So come back for those, check those out, and come back next week for Sorcerer, the 1977 William Friedkin movie. And we'll talk about it.
That's a threat, a promise, and everything else in between, baby.
Okay. On Book Club for Movies.
Bye!